Right, welcome ladies and gents. In Alien Earth, episode 5, was T. Ocellus trying to warn the scientist of what was going to happen to her with the ticks? No, in short. We actually have it direct from the horse's mouth, the writer, director, showrunner of this show, and also this particular episode, Noah Hawley. This is the In Space, blah, 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 Alien Earth, the official podcast, right? Now, they cover this stuff weekly, obviously, because it's to do with the show itself. And there is some interesting reveals. So, the Noah Hawley section isn't that long, but it's long enough to listen to what he's got to say, specifically about what he calls the Eye Mage. Interesting. And then also how he views Alien as a property. And I think this will be interesting for a few people. So, I thought we'd just cover this, because I think it is actually interesting. So please do hit subscribe if you're new here, guys, and do turn those bell notifications on. But let's just take a look. And like I said, we're going to do a bit of sort of rhetorical conversation with this piece. All right. So we're going to listen to a bit, pause a bit, listen to a bit, pause a bit. If you don't like this kind of content, then just click off the video, because that is what we're going to be doing today, I'm afraid. If you want to listen to the actual piece, go to FX's YouTube channel. I want to do just a rhetorical piece responding to certain key bits and pieces. So let's take a listen and let's see what you guys think of this. Because when I heard some of the stuff here, I was like, all right then.
Hawley to talk about our brief interlude in space. Then I'll talk to the show's editor, Regis Kimball, about editing in the world of sci-fi and horror, and chat with the actor Babu Sising about his decidedly non-mechanical performance as the partly mechanical Moro. To round it all out, since we got a lot of new faces this episode at the end, I have the accidental captain of the Maginot, Richa Morjani. Let's start with this episode's obvious departure from the series so far, as it interrupts our regularly scheduled Alien Earth programming for some Alien Space programming. For series creator Noah Hawley, that was entirely on purpose. Mostly.
You get to see the Alien movie of my dreams. That I've been wanting to make. And originally in the conception of the season, that episode was not part of what the season was going to be, but then I just found it irresistible. And I also felt like if we were offering people a series called Alien, we needed an alien movie in the middle of it. We needed a spaceship journey.
Oh, that's interesting. The episode sort of wasn't originally part of how you imagined the series, because this kind of a spaceship story is, like you said, they're an integral part of how the universe has been shaped.
The series, as I've said, went through an evolution. I mean, it took us...
So I think that's sort of just an important point, just to reference straight off the bat. His dialogue was, you get to see the Alien movie of my dreams. This was one of the episodes I really didn't like. So if this is the Alien movie of your dreams, deeply disappointing, Noah Hawley. Deeply disappointing. But it is interesting to say that they weren't actually going to be conceptualizing that from the off. We will get to the Eye Mage, don't worry, it's part of this. But it's also part of the grander scale, I think, of like the issues people have had with this particular episode. Just leaving canisters open, for instance. I understand people go, yeah, but all movies have idiots in them. That's why we even have the Alien movies. Well, Alien, you can forgive them for being a bit stupid because they're space truckers. Right? Like, they're not experts. They are just truckers. They're just bumbling through space. These people were sent out specifically with a mission to target extraterrestrial life and bring specimens home. So they would know what these specimens do. They know the dangers. They would have seen them. They should also be relative experts, right? Weyland-Yutani, Ms. Yutani, wouldn't be sending out absolute tards. You just wouldn't be doing it. You wouldn't be sending out imbeciles. But we ended up with pretty not naive, but just like incompetent people. So yeah, a bit disappointing, really, if he's saying that that's the movie of his dreams. But okay.
Many years to get to it, and the idea of doing a mid-season episode, which was the story of what happened on the ship, came to me. As we were gearing up to go into production, and
now I will say I actually know something about this particular episode. There was an idea that, and he kind of gives it away here. I can't reveal too much, but I will say this, is that this episode was going to be referencing some things that potentially would have just completely broke canon and lore. And thank God whoever edited it managed to edit them out. And there are still remnants of those things that were going to break the law in the episode. I can't reveal too much, I'm afraid. But there are elements of it in there. And gold star for anyone that has figured out what that is. But it does make sense saying, well, yeah, I just wrote it as we were gearing up to go to production. It's like, yep, okay.
I shifted my directing from doing the first 2 hours to doing the first hour and the 5th hour, because of course I wasn't going to let anyone else make the alien movie of my dreams. Sitting down to write that episode was a really exciting opportunity for me. If you're going to play in these waters, you have to have a very clear vision for what you want to pull off and why you're doing it at all when, it's been done before so well. We have an advantage that the movies don't necessarily have, which is this story exists in the context of a larger story. In television terms, this is the Morrow episode, where you learn his backstory and you see what brought him to the moment where we met him, in which the ship landed. It just also happens to be a mystery about who's sabotaging a spaceship full of alien creatures and the chaos of how they escape and everything goes to hell.
So
I think that's perfectly fine, perfectly reasonable, those previous statements. But then this gets quite interesting.
what were the things that were like must have for your Alien movie?
Well, I like that it was a mystery. That it was driven by this mystery of who had sabotaged the ship. I thought added some human stakes to it, some chaos, right, that the creatures could take advantage of. One of the things that the season has introduced in what we call the Eye Mage is a hyper-intelligent creature that strategizes. And so what I liked playing with was how the Eye Mage could take advantage of, say, seeing the ticks escape and then drawing attention to itself to allow them to do their thing. And so we don't know anything about these creatures that have just been invented for the series. We don't know that what we first see is what looks like an octopus with an eyeball on it is going to pop your eye out and replace it. And we don't know that how the ticks
So there you go. The Eye Mage, as he calls it, wasn't trying to warn the scientists, was genuinely just trying to work in its advantage, its favour. But it's interesting, actually, because I think what Noah Hawley's kind of revealed in there is some of the editing that has taken place in this, saying that, we don't know anything about these creatures. We don't know that what we first see is what looks like an octopus with an eyeball on it, and it's about to pop your eye out and replace it. We actually do know that because they've already showed it in the series. So it feels like they've potentially shifted some of the narrative around, and we've seen more of the Eye Mage than we should have done up until this point, if that makes sense. It does seem that way.
Produce. We don't know any of these elements about these creatures, which makes it very exciting for me as a storyteller. And the only rule is it has to be disturbing.
So how situated does that story have to be in an Alien canon in terms of like when it takes place and what happens in the other movies? Is there canonicity? Is there canonical stuff that matters? Or do you just have to take the outlines and vibe and then you get to do what you want to do?
My philosophy is you can make me care about that stuff. It's not my instinct to care about it necessarily. The big things that general audiences invest in are sacrosanct to some degree. And then the deeper you have to dive to find, in this novelization, they introduce the idea of how you make a queen, etc. That stuff is speculative. That's another author's version of an Alien story. But, for me, the real canon is the first film and, to a major degree, the second film also. And, if you think about the fact that 40 years have passed between those first two films and premiere.
So there he goes. He's saying basically what's canon to him is the first and second movie, which I think is actually, you're doing yourself a disservice there, Noah, mate. You're doing yourself a massive disservice by saying that. And I think that's a huge shame. I think it's a massive, massive shame because it doesn't take much to care. And I've been saying this a few times and I keep saying it. I absolutely do know that Fede Alvarez tried reaching out to Noah Hawley whilst he was making Alien Earth, because Romulus was filming kind of alongside it, and they were like, Fede Alvarez wanted to talk to line it all up so it didn't break canon, and Noah Hawley wasn't interested. And there you go, that's why. Couldn't care less.
Prometheus, right. It means that for those of us who saw those movies when they came out, we lived for 40 years with that being what the story of a xenomorph was. 40 years later, it was introduced this idea of the black goo and the engineers. And I think that that is another great version of the alien story, but in my mind it exists even though it was Ridley as a kind of alternate fiction about these creatures who had been described to all of us for 40 years as the perfect evolutionary predator, right, who had existed for millions of years in this form. And so that's the reality of which, I came to this series. And, the degree to which I'm introducing these new creatures allows me to create new canon.
So there's a storytelling challenge there, which is how you tell a new and exciting spaceship story. But there's also, I have to assume, a directing challenge, because a lot of really well-known directors have taken on alien films, and directing this episode especially, I just wonder, is that something you were thinking about, hitting some of the same visual cues or doing some of the same things that they did, but also trying to make it your own?
As a film,
don't care too much about the rest of this. It's not actually that interesting. He just talks about how he chose to direct the film itself, and then he moves pretty much quickly on to other bits and pieces and his other guest for this episode. But there you have it. So this is absolutely an Elseworlds thing. He's not really interested in it. I will say this, I just really do hope that Fede Alvarez doesn't attempt to try and make Alien Romulus sequel fit in with this, because Noah Hawley clearly doesn't care, and if Noah Hawley gets a second season, he's not going to try and write that in an effort to maintain a status quo. And then in the Alien films, you'll always have like a knock-on effect where they're trying to chase what Noah Hawley is doing and align that to make it work. So there you go. The Eye Mage wasn't trying to warn the scientist. The Eye Mage was trying to distract her. And Noah Hawley just doesn't care about canon. Yay, good times. Leave your thoughts down below. Bye-bye now.